mental rep.
Yeah, no. So the way that I was just planning about doing this,
He has the voice.
I know, he really does.
That's the voice.
Whoa!
That's
Should
it.
I have the voice?
That's a good voice.
Is it a really good voice?
It's a good podcast voice.
It's a good podcast
You
voice.
should be the moderator.
Yeah, it's
Should
very
be the
soothing.
moderator.
It's nice.
All right. So, well, this is awkward. 3 men just told me I have a nice voice. Why don't we talk about an introduction of how we got here, of who exactly we are, and I guess from on one side there's a sports aspect, and then on the other side there's the general health and fitness aspect. So, why don't we start off? Dan, you're kind of like the glue that brought us all together. So, what was the inception like? How did the district start?
No, honestly, the district kind of started from us just wanting to provide a higher value of just coaching, training, all of that towards the clientele that we had. Scott and I, I don't know if anyone is following us right now because we just started, but we were working at another facility for about 3 years together. Already had the team with Jorge, Niel, and Pat, and we were just looking to just expand on that side. There are a lot of gyms that I worked at over the last few years, and just a lot of things that I saw they did well, a lot of things that I thought that they can improve on. There's a lot of things that we can just grow into. So Scott and I just randomly had the conversation a few times talking about opening up a facility together. He ended up finding one spot that was just well out of our budget. We found this spot about a week later, and we signed the lease and didn't look back.
So what about like a little bit before that? Like even before that, before the district was an idea, how did you get into fitness? Like what drew you to the gym? What were you doing before you were going to the gym? What did that Dan look like?
Well, he was about 100 pounds soaking wet,
Uh-huh.
5 foot, playing rugby. So clearly that kind of build physique wasn't great for sports. So between that, again, being 5 foot, 100 pounds soaking wet, hitting my puberty, it was like 5'6".
Nice.
Yeah.
It
Kinda
says
chill.
soaking wet with conviction.
Honestly, like the biggest thing was I wanted to get girls.
Okay.
I wanted to look good for that. I just wanted to just, instead of a girl like looking at me like, oh, you're so cute. Like, oh, you're cute.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of
Do they
feel.
look at you like that?
No,
No. So,
not anymore. It's mostly guys now at this point.
yeah. And so then where did you go from there? You wanted to get girls. You didn't want to look like adorable, cute. You wanted to be cute. Where did you go from there? Did you get a job like selling?
Yeah, I
supplements?
started working as eventually down the line after a few years into personal training, a few years into fitness, I decided to get a job at a commercial gym, New York Sports Clubs. I was there for about like 3-4 years maybe. Eventually left just because it was a terrible environment and I just didn't really feel like I was growing at all. So I ended up going independent, working at a boutique studio as a coach and then also doing some personal training out of there. Eventually went to another studio. And that's actually where I met Scott. And we were there for about 3-ish years, maybe, give or
3
take.
years.
About 3 years. So, after the pandemic, a lot of things were shut down. There were a lot of opportunities now at this point to actually open up a space. And that's how the inception basically came about.
So now we bounce to you, Scott. So then you come into Dan's life and nothing was the same again.
It changed his life for the better, honestly.
Absolutely.
He said this to me on multiple occasions.
Yeah, you did.
And he's very tough.
How did you? Now you went the sports route. You didn't go the general health and fitness route. You didn't go the bro lifting route. You have more letters next to your name than in your actual name. I counted. I think there's like 21 letters next to your name, and there's like 11 in your name.
That was what I was going for. My first name is just one syllable, and I kind of felt lacking in that department, so I pursued a lot of certifications to make up for it.
It's all about compensation.
No, but I started in sports performance. I graduated with a degree in sports medicine, and that's, if anyone's not familiar, that's athletic training. Those are the guys who are on the sideline of a football game. Somebody goes down and gets injured. You run out, do the injury evaluation, see if they're okay enough to move, get them onto the sideline, and then you're basically taking them from injury through rehab, through their pre-return to play conditioning, and then getting them back on the field and keeping them healthy. I liked a lot of components of that, but for me, there's a lot of walking around as a water boy. Unless you're at the head athletic trainer level, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you don't always get to kind of use everything that you know on a routine basis. And I took a class in sports performance, strength and conditioning, and started to realize that I can apply certain things from both of those areas to get better results for athletes, and work in injury prevention things to somebody's normal training routine for somebody who is not injured, currently healthy, and help keep them healthy, help bolster their performance. And then also work with people who are coming out of physical therapy, coming out of an injury, a surgery, and use some components from strength and conditioning to help really bridge that gap between rehab and getting them back on the field. So I started to kind of develop a niche in that area because a lot of people were more going the personal training route or just the strength and conditioning route. And I have been very fortunate with the athletes that I've been able to work with and kept them healthy at the highest levels, working with everyone from youth up to professional sports. I started in a pretty large training facility, probably 28,000 square foot facility where we're working with large sports teams, one-on-one training classes. And oftentimes you see when something is too large or overscaled, it's hard to maintain the quality. So that's kind of one of the reasons I went out on my own, developed my own company. First, Gunter Performance with my last name, mostly one-on-one type training. I wanted to preserve that level of quality in everyone's programs, give them individual programs. But then after working with Dan at the last place that we were at as independent contractors, we saw eye to eye on a lot of different things and wanted that same quality with our respective populations. So we naturally gravitated towards each other and saw that we can grow our businesses in a post-pandemic world and continue to offer the quality that a lot of clients need and deserve while cutting through some of the BS information that's out there. And that's kind of one of the reasons we started our facility, but also why we wanted to bring this podcast together, was to get the good quality information out there, not just to our clients, but to really anyone who will listen, because you can go every which way, social media, tabloids, magazines, so-called fitness influencers, and there's a lot of information out there, and that doesn't mean it's always good information. So we wanted to be able to make it our full-time jobs to filter that information and give you the good quality information with a little bit of entertainment along the way. And that's me.
We know that Dan was motivated by getting girls. What was your motivation into getting into fitness, into sports?
I really like cars, and I would like to drive an Aston Martin someday. And I realized I probably couldn't do that as a high school athletic trainer. But I also like helping people, so some good things and selfish things. But I always wanted to be kind of a part of the action. I unfortunately was not the number one draft pick in the NFL or the top performing athlete all around. So I did track and field, some soccer, mixed martial arts, kind of a whole bunch of different sports growing up. And I would say I never really specialized. I had parents who kind of said, go do whatever makes you happy, but no parents who were saying you're going to be the best of this sport and train every single day in your life. And I also didn't have access to sports performance training, personal training growing up. So I kind of wanted to give that back to people and help them achieve certain things that maybe I didn't have the opportunity to achieve, because I realized if I could outwork them by reading the books, reading the research, and finding the good quality information, then I could help the athletes who have that natural talent. I could help the ones who maybe have that surrounding support structure to get them to where they want to go. And then along the way, opening your own business, you can definitely work towards your dreams of having some nice cars.
A little perfect mix of both situations. Yeah, it's really interesting because I was talking to somebody who did sports in like the 90s, the early 2000s even, and they described the sports environment being completely different than what they see nowadays. Back then, their warm-up drills were, his sport was basketball. His warm-up drills were just, all right, go onto the court and just do a bunch of layups. Now he's describing the scene as people using bands. They're doing all these intricate styles of warm-up drills that are, I guess, with the intention of injury prevention, and that's kind of where you land in terms of the evolution of sports science. Is you're on the side of let's take a more strategic approach to prevent injury and to boost performance.
Yeah, and I kind of think both of those go hand in hand. If you're an elite athlete, I mean, you've probably been exposed to injury prevention at some point along the way where you realize, okay, if I am a great athlete, I can only be a great athlete if I'm staying on the field. So you are now implementing a bunch of different areas to enhance your game, from mental recovery, from psychology and nutrition, massage, like all these other supplemental areas. The higher you go in your sport, you start to introduce some of those things. But previously, a lot of athletes would look at, stretching, recovery, rehab, that's kind of weak. I'd rather just lift heavy weights in the gym. But I kind of look at it as hand in hand. If you can handle more stress, if you can get your body in a better position, that's going to help you change direction faster. That's also going to help prevent knee injuries, help prevent overuse, because you're spreading out force evenly. You're making sure that everything is in the best position to both produce power and get in and out of positions evenly. So I kind of I try to educate athletes from that perspective to help them see the benefit of both ways, but they truly are seeing the benefit because the things that we're working with are helping them perform better too. So we try to work in a lot of different things from those perspectives that are enhancing their performance, but also helping to prevent injury and maintain position.
Mm-hmm. So it's like basically the golden rule of going hard and going ham 100% of the time. There's some terms and conditions underneath that where you have to take some preventative measures.
I mean, honestly, I say this to a lot of my clients. You make your progress during your recovery. You're not, if I give you a dumbbell right now and have you curl it, do some kind of press with it, you're not going to be stronger right after that rep. You might have augmented the nervous system, ramped up the muscles that you're using, but you are not growing right in that rep. You're growing during your recovery. You're making your progress from your recovery. So it really has to be this three-pronged approach of training, nutrition, and recovery. If you're neglecting any one of those three, then the other two are going to suffer. You're not going to get the most out of those other two. So that's actually what we try to emphasize here. Every athlete that comes in, every training client that comes in, they're going through a personalized warm-up. They're going through their actual training. They're going through their recovery routine. And then our coaches are working with them on the nutrition standpoint. That's helping to give them the building blocks that they need to recover from these actual workouts, and working on things like mobility, breathing mechanics, postural restoration to help them come into that next workout as close to 100% as possible.
Right. And I think that's where we all align, the four of us. And I think that's what brought us together, is that principle of it's a lot more than just how you perform. It's also about fatigue management. It's about loading, managing intensity, managing loads, managing technique. And we developed that not because we went to school or because we were looking at sports performance. We developed that. And by we, I mean Niel, Dan, and I, by competing in powerlifting, right, guys? Like, that's how we got into his strength training. And that kind of brings me over to Niel. Your story here is kind of like if Dan and Scott's story had a baby, right? Because you're a little bit of sports performance, you're a little bit of bodybuilding, a little bit of powerlifting, martial arts. You have a stacked resume. Like, what was your inception like?
I think my story is kind of relatable to the average gym bro or anyone who started fitness, and it was all because of a girl, right? You get your heart broken, and then you start going to the gym. But I think my first experience with fitness was through martial arts when I was 4, and I couldn't even do a push-up. So from that into being a teenager, starting to worry about my physical appearance in high school, and then getting my heart broken, and then just being like, all right, I got to go to the gym. You know what I mean? And then after that, I started teaching classes at Taekwondo school, and I was like, wow, I actually have a lot of fun teaching Taekwondo, but also the fitness aspect of it, There was no real science behind what I was doing, but I knew that there was something more that I can try to improve performance there, but I just didn't know how to. And there really wasn't a lot of information or studies or training philosophies for Taekwondo into trying to what to do, besides just calisthenics and just regular training and sparring, right? And then, before going to college, I actually met Dan at the New York Sports Club he was working at through a friend of ours, and we actually did our first workout together. And I could barely bench 185, and that's where I started to love powerlifting. And my overall goal was to actually just be stronger than Dan. So that's where we brought out that natural competitive nature. Yeah. So yeah. Then Dan and I started to work out a lot, like more together, and like at the rec, and then New York Sports Club, because I started working there as well as a front desk. Got interested in being a personal trainer there, and then I believe I just continued with powerlifting. Then I went to this gym. We met at Adelante Barbell Club, and that's where my start at actually powerlifting coaching, came along. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just like looking at all the programs that were online, trying to figure out what they were doing, watching YouTube videos, maybe looking at like Elite FTS or, what was the other one? T Nation?
T Nation.
Bodybuilding.com, all those programs. What is it? Candido's, just running those programs, PH3 by Lane Norton. And then I was like, oh, I'm getting strong. I wonder what I can do and make my own program. And it started with just free programs for people at the gym. And then all the people that were like all my friends that just wanted to get into lifting. And then from there, I kind of like, all right, cool. I think I can do this. I got confident and they were seeing results. And I started to look for more mentors, just trying to teach me how to do this. And then that's where, when I went to school for exercise science, I actually learned the principles for strength training, how to create programming or proper programming, technique, and at the gym at Adelante, that's where I learned all my soft coaching skills from. And then being able to coach people at powerlifting meets. After that, took a break, started to dive into Olympic weightlifting, had fun with that. And then I wanted to dive into bodybuilding. So I prepped for my first bodybuilding show, and it got canceled, unfortunately. But all that experience, I was just like, wow. Then
what did you do when it got canceled?
I had a dozen donuts.
You actually had 14.
I had 14. All right, maybe like a dozen. And then I had
the
like
sandwich too.
And the sandwich, yeah.
Oh my
It was a
God.
donut sandwich, like 2 donuts with a bacon, egg, and cheese.
I don't regret it.
We'll do a future podcast on what to do if your meet is canceled or how to come out of a diet.
Yeah, during a quarantine.
I think we got like pizza afterwards that night.
Yeah, we did get pizza. But anyways, that's for another time. So yeah, got into bodybuilding, did that, and then now I find myself back into Olympic weightlifting, where I kind of, that's where my passion is at right now. And after, opening the gym and, just working with these guys, specifically Scott, kind of opened my eyes to more sports performance. And, I believe where my heart is at right now, where I want to tie the bridge between Olympic weightlifting and sports performance, because I do believe that it's like one of the best ways to enhance performance in terms of like doing the clean and jerk, the snatch, and doing it properly, while also just managing fatigue and trying to make sure all our athletes are sound in technique, or sound with their technique. And from there, trying to just produce really badass athletes, So yeah, that, and, obviously our lifestyle transformation athletes or clients that we work with, they're the best. And I just love seeing the change with them. So, from when it comes to their mindset and then it comes to the training and then just seeing the overall changes, it's what really brings me joy,
Yeah, I'd say that's really what we're about here. This is a very giving field where we're not necessarily taking, we're really giving expertise, we're giving our knowledge, and we are giving it to people to perform out on the field, to perform out in their lives, because we don't just necessarily guide you through movements. We don't necessarily just program you. We don't just tell you what to eat or when to eat or how to eat it. We're effectively changing lives. We're either making them an athlete stronger, better, faster, or we're taking a professional who's been sedentary their entire lives and getting them to adopt a fit lifestyle, which isn't necessarily easy either. I would maybe put both of those in the same bucket as just being overall difficult, because you're forcing yourself to do things that you didn't do before, whether it's slowing down and learning something new, or whether it's speeding up and really pushing yourself to new limits.
Yeah, so Jorge, why don't you talk about yourself and where you started and what got you into this realm? I know what you're doing before was the total opposite of fitness,
Yeah, so little old me. Honestly, I didn't get my heart broken. I was just egotistical and I wanted to just be stronger and bigger than everybody else. That was really it. I saw there's this one dude who was on the basketball team. He was a really strong, big dude. And I was like, damn, nobody's messing with him. I want to be like him. And that's what got me into the gym. And then I just read bodybuilding.com forums and picked programs. I took anatomy because I wanted to learn more about the body. I slept through the skeletal system, the cardiac system. I slept through the respiratory system. But when it came to the muscle system, I was awake. Then applied some of those teachings, went to the gym, got really good, got really strong, ate everything that you could imagine that was in my face. And I tried teaching people. I'm going to be honest with you. I was one of those people that got into teaching people very early on, and I just was not good at it. I was teaching my brothers. I was trying to teach my uncles. I was trying to teach a lot of people back in high school and my freshman year. I wasn't good at it. So I gave up on coaching. Honestly, I didn't want to coach anybody. I didn't want to train anybody. Then I just wanted to become an athlete. So I went into powerlifting, got to the national level. That's when my eyes opened up to the next level. And I was going to make my run to place at a national meet. And that's when the pandemic hit. Got into some other stuff, got into some jiu-jitsu, fell in love with jiu-jitsu sport. Been wanting to get back to it since, but have some unfinished business in the powerlifting realm. So I have yet to complete that. Then during that, right before the pandemic, I think it was right before the pandemic, it was on a drive with Dan that we were talking about coaching and effectively getting back into it. And frankly, if it wasn't for the fact that I'd be associated with you guys or learning from you guys, I wouldn't have gotten back into coaching. But because I knew that you guys knew what you were doing and you guys knew how to coach people, I bought in and I jumped ship and I joined you guys in coaching. I think that was kind of like the what happened, the how it happened, but I think the why just always stems back to health. Health was always an issue in my family. My father had kidney failure when we were young, so he was in and out of dialysis, hours in, hours out. My mom has always struggled with taking care of herself. So in a world where health was always an issue, I decided that I wanted to become part of the solution, and not necessarily in the medicinal route, but more so in the preemptive measures and being able to help people lose some weight so that their joints hurt less, or get more active so that they have a healthier cardiac system, or just get stronger so they feel good about themselves. I think that's the coolest part, is when they feel good about themselves, not having been able to hit a PR before, but hitting that PR now. So one of the things that I wanted to close up with was, hey, we all have almost a decade's worth of experience in terms of health and fitness or sports performance. So for us to get into something sports related or fitness related, it doesn't seem impossible. It seems very feasible to us. What would you recommend to somebody who's trying to get into fitness, who's been in their ways, sedentary lifestyle, meaning they've been sitting all day, they get home, they probably flick the tube, put something on, eat some delightful food. What would you say to that person that now wants to join us on the other side of fitness and health and that sort of jazz?
You can go to district-training.com to inquire.
Shameless plug.
But no, in all seriousness, I think the best thing somebody can do is just get started with something. Just get the ball rolling, build a habit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just be something that they enjoy and can sustain for a little while. And then once they build that habit, get into something a little bit deeper. Get into something that's going to be a little more productive for themselves, because 9 out of 10 times, like somebody who's completely sedentary, has never done anything, just sitting on their ass all day, if they just get moving, doing something, they're going to see some change.
But we all know that's easier said than done. One thing I would really recommend or emphasize for a lot of people is a support system. And it's hard to create that for yourself. But if you're even considering getting involved in fitness, getting involved in sports, or getting more active, even 1%, tell the people around you, tell your family members, tell friends, and find one person who's like, you know what, maybe I've been considering that for a while. I want to do this with you, because you both are going to be more successful together than if one person is just dabbling on their own. And you can learn you can learn together. You can get involved with some new things together. You can fail a little bit together, but when you guys fail, you have somebody else who's going to help push you along. So I do think a support system is probably one of the most important things in starting a new goal and sticking to it.
Yeah, great points, guys. I definitely would like to add that maybe just trying to define your goal, right? Because if you really don't know what you want to do, then you're kind of going to be lost, right? What was that quote you said about the maps?
Oh, I like to say that if you are trying to get to Florida and you've got a map to California, how quickly will you get to Florida?
Just hop on a plane and pilot.
But anyways, if you don't have a clear goal, then it's going to be hard for you to know what you want to do and try to attain, right? So if your goal is fat loss, then I would say maybe just try to look up how to lose fat on Google. You know what I mean? How to lose weight. It's simple as that. Or maybe looking at people around you who know a thing or two and maybe messaging them. Looking at, for me, it was like, all right, well, I want to get stronger. I'm going to ask the strongest person I know how to get strong. At the time, it was Dan, but you know.
Life's changed.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But, you know, I knew he was a professional in the field, and I was like, all right, man, how can I do this? And he pointed me in the right direction. And, you know, most people will definitely give you free information and point you in the right direction. You know what I mean? And they will help you. So don't be shy. You know, if you want to find something, go look for it and define those goals.
And then once you've found your goal, figure out some habits and some systems to put in place so that it becomes autonomous. Really, a lot of this just becomes a lifestyle. There's no real destination. There's no real end game to this. At the end of the day, we all kind of just die. So, but it's not about, but everybody dies, not everybody lives. Oh, that was a little bit more cheery. And so it's about finding that lifestyle and the way you want to live, and then just chasing after how you want to live. So if you want to be healthier, that's all subjective to what your current stance is. So if you want to be healthier and you're used to eating Cheetos after lunch, then maybe go for that fig bar, or maybe go for like a fruit or broccoli, you know, whatever it is, it's healthier to you, you know, it's healthier to you. And that's really what it comes down to, is you and what you want.
Nice.
Very good.
What do you think are some like limiting factors for some people trying to start their fitness?
Yeah, there's a lot of limiting factors. I think the first one is your environment. If you're in an environment where I want to call it crap food, or let's call it like processed food that don't carry as much nutrients as whole foods may. If you're in an environment where all of that is very readily available, like put yourself as in a situation where you're an employee at Chick-fil-A, you're going to eat Chick-fil-A every day you're there. The odds of you going to, a salad bar is very, very minimal, if at all possible. Right, Eric? He works at Chick-fil-A. So that's definitely my take on limiting factor.
Or how about for someone who has never been in a setting or environment where they work out or they've done sports or go out? What would you say to that?
It's really their comfort, their willingness to dive headfirst into that right away. Education, if they don't know where to start. This is an industry that can get cluttered, overwhelming very, very quick. So you go online and, again, maybe if you do search how to lose fat, you're not going to just get one of those quick Google responses that says, oh, lose fat by doing this. And then, okay, that's simple. I'm just going to move forward and do that. You're going to get a ton of ads. You're going to get a ton of different people saying this is the best way. To be honest, you're going to get the ones that have the most clicks, that are going to be the lose 30 pounds in 30 days, do this the fastest way possible, because this is America. This is what we want. We want it now. And we're not willing to read something that is going to take me more than 15 seconds. It's hard to take the first step when you have so much either misinformation, cluttered information, or so many different places to start. So we are throwing a couple different kind of possibilities or limiting factors out there. But when you work with a coach, our job is to kind of clear that up and navigate more appropriately and point your ship in the direction and just tell you to start walking forward. So for limiting factors, yeah, education, filtering out that information can definitely be one of the hardest things for somebody who's new to actually start.
Definitely agree with that. Like, but the one thing that I do love though, when getting on a call with a prospective new client, you know, or trying to ask someone, or when people come to me for questions, I like asking like, you know, what are your goals 1 and 2? Like, where did you come from? Like, what was your background? Right. And they're like, oh, I started this, like you said, like this Jenny Craig's thing, you know what I mean? And then, you know, I had my previous coach, or maybe like, you know, he had me like at 1,000, 1,200 calories or something, you know what I mean? And then you can just be like, oh, wow, like that was very aggressive, you know what I mean? And then kind of steer them in a direction where like, oh, like I think this would be good for you, you know what I mean? Or maybe like if someone's trying to get into strength training and then they're doing like German volume training, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, or Bulgarian method, you know, they're just like,
Max
yeah,
out every day.
just max out every day. Maybe that's not the best way to train, but I can point you in a direction where it is kind of feasible to hit your goals and not get burnt out and injured, you know what I mean, at the end of the week. So yeah, I think Dan and I call this the fuckboy period of training, you know what I mean? Where you just do whatever you want, and then, you know, you find out what you don't like and then what you do like, and then you just go from there. You know, so I think you got to mess up a little bit, and you got to like, you know, find the things you don't like so that you can go on to succeed and hit your goals, you know, right, Dave?
One of the questions I tend to ask a client on initially meeting is what has worked well for you, what hasn't. Because the last thing I want to know is, say they come in and they were just doing something and maybe it's a good exercise, but maybe they had an injury or had a bad experience with that. We don't want to throw them right into that right away, but we want to see what they've tried so far so that we know how to navigate that conversation and kind of create that roadmap that is most appropriate for them. But I do like that too. I wouldn't consider that the completely inexperienced client. That's a client who has tried a lot of stuff. And because there is so much in the industry, there are a lot of different outlets for a lot of different people. So we can kind of find what makes the most sense for that individual client, but also kind of show them how maybe these fad diets, maybe these quick, aggressive type programs, or these one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter programs, we can show them, okay, you've tried these things in 3 different ways, but all kind of the same thing. You've tried them 3 different times, and they all haven't worked. Now let's talk about why it hasn't worked, and now let's figure out, okay, this is what does work. And you try the fast method. Now let's try the method that actually yields slow, sustainable results that you're going to look at yourself in a mirror a year from now, and you're going to say, okay, now today was that moment that I made that difference, and today's the reason that I am where I am today.
Yeah, my day was when I walked into what was it? It was World's Gym, Denellen. It's no longer built. It's no longer there. It's been torn down. It smelled like steroids, big juicy men, bro, because they were probably selling it out of the locker room. It was a very defining moment when that 45-pound bar landed on my chest and I couldn't get it off. And a guy with like 28-inch arms came over and just lifted it off like nothing. I was like, oh, damn. Yeah, I'm going to go switch over to dumbbells now.
Don't hit the machine.
No. They had no machines there. It was that kind of gym. Damn. They had like very few machines.
But they had a Smith machine?
They had a Smith machine. I hit the Smith machine. So, you know, at the end of the day, you got to go look stupid. The odds are people are busy looking at themselves in the mirror. So go look stupid. And after you make it a mess, try to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Definitely hear a lot from like, just doesn't matter if it's fitness, business, anything like that. A lot of the people who are just most successful at wherever they're at right now, they look fucking stupid. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah,
they look fucking stupid.
It's yours. You could literally do whatever you want with it.
When they first started, they weren't great right off the bat. They weren't awesome. They weren't like LeBron James. 5 years ago.
Yes, but then you go to Michael Jordan and the amount of shots that he's missed. Actually, one of the best stories I like about him is the fact that he didn't make, I guess, his high school
His high school basketball team, yeah.
Would Michael Jordan be Michael Jordan today if he made that
You
basketball
know what's
team
so
right away?
funny about that? My freshman year of high school, I told you about that guy that was like big, beefy, and he was a basketball player, and I just wanted to be like him. That guy, right? So I would always challenge him at basketball. I'd always challenge him to play basketball, and man, he'd dust me. He'd leave me in the dust, and so I had this vision of me beating him at freshman tryouts.
Did you?
I went to wrestling the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my basketball story. But I wouldn't have been a good wrestler if I didn't fail at basketball.
It's fair.
I was a pretty bad wrestler in the beginning too, though.
So going back, we were talking about for someone like what to do with losing weight, right? And just where to start. So I think we've said some pretty good things. What are some basic things that people need, or basic habits to really build that really help with sustainability, longevity? What do you think, guys? What comes to mind?
I usually have like a checklist for this. Like with any new clients or current clients, I always think about, just general checklists of activity, nutrition, and then also just like life factors, for example. So stress, water intake, daily activities, so like walking, anything like that. And then also like what you guys were saying earlier, environment. What kind of support system do you have? What are you cooking at home? Are your parents cooking? Anything like that. Like what are the things that are most local to you? So one of the biggest ones that I always think about is like, what's the person's like stress levels, whether it be they're not sleeping enough, they have too much stress from work, they have too much stress in a relationship, anything like that. And then trying to help manage something like that for them. That makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of want to go you guys, like if I'm, one of the biggest revelations I had was that we have been put into a system, whether it be the food system, whether it be whatever type of system, but in a system where we don't really have a big control on what we eat. A lot of people go into a busy daily routine and they eat what's available, and what's available has been available because there's this multi-trillion-dollar system that organizes locations of foods, what kind of foods, how it gets made, how it gets there. Like this is all just a huge system. That just dictates how we eat. So you kind of have to be a little woke, otherwise you'll fall victim to that system. You have to just make decisions on what you want to eat. Say no to eating certain things. Say no to the vending machine. Say no to the 4 for $4 deal at Wendy's. Say no to the Jersey Mike's sub that's conveniently located 10 minutes away from the district. Say no to
12.
extra guac.
I think,
They make
yeah,
it easy with the price.
yeah.
They make the, and then there's the pricing aspect, and then some of that stuff is cheap, and then there's the convenience aspect of I really don't feel like cooking. I really don't feel like doing all this prep work for some nachos that when I could just go to the local bar and just get nachos from them. I think you just have to be a little bit more woke and intentional in what you put into your body.
Let's take that a step further. In an industry where there's that much money at stake, if you are a multi-billion-dollar company and you have so many products out there, if you can save a couple cents per product, you're going to make more money. If you can, and a lot more money. If you can sell a little bit more product in more regions, you're going to make a lot more money. So they have entire teams of people at different areas that are dedicated towards the color on the packaging, the logos, the overall brand, even the smells and things that you associate with it. The color, if you wonder why all the fast food chains are similar colors, there's research that shows you those colors are going to make you want to eat more, consume more. Those are making you hungry. The smells associated with things like yogurt products or other foods, all those flavors that you don't see the actual piece of fruit in there, those are all, a lot of those are designed to stimulate your reward centers and get you to want to buy more. So when we are in the system, yes, we are responsible for our own choices, but the world makes it pretty difficult to have that free will at times. And we've created a system behind our work where we're always on the go. We need that convenience. So we need that convenience. This other company who makes billions of dollars says, here's your convenience. And it's usually not going to be the best option. How many like actual real vegetable portions do you see in the food that's readily available? That's probably the limiting factor I see most with my clients. The businessmen, the executives that are on the go constantly, they are the ones that tend to need some of these healthier options. And there's far and few between the companies that do offer that. You have to kind of know where to find it. We can help our clients find that, but it's also about price point and knowing where to look. Even a lot of these foods that now seem to be healthy and have these buzzwords like free range. I saw something the other day that said for something to say free range, it literally could be an outhouse or a house of chickens with like this little fenced in area where maybe one chicken can fit at a time, and they could call those free range. So a lot of the information that's available to the general consumer is being confused by these legal systems, the finance, the billion-dollar industries of these huge companies that are allowed to use these words that kind of trick us into thinking something's all natural, healthy, and essentially good for us.
I think the first thing you got to admit is you've been got. You've been got by.
Got them.
They got us. They got us. And it's okay to say because they spent billions of dollars, tons of hours of research just to get us.
So what do you do?
I like how you guys talk about systems, right? And just trying to learn, maybe like unlearning that system,
Or
right?
creating a better system.
Or creating a better system, right? So I think growing up, just being in a Filipino household, my mom always cooked. My dad always cooked, right? So like I already had meals planned for me for lunch and then maybe breakfast and then dinner too. So I came home, I just ate whatever's on the table, you know? So I never really understood nutrition. You know, I never really understood what it meant to like have like my proteins, fats, carb sources, what kind of food that was like healthy, parentheses. But I think that changed when I started to do my bodybuilding prep because I had to learn how to say no, you know, learn how to say no to those fast foods, learn how to say no to just buying something quick out of like 7-Eleven or Quick Check. Learn how to say no to my mom's cooking, you know?
Learn how to say no to systems that are designed to make you say yes. I mean,
yeah.
think about how convenient. You can tap your credit card nowadays. If you look around you go to a so-called Whole Foods or healthy convenience store or healthy grocery store, look at all the foods that are right around the checkout counter. They're all grab and go. How many of us have gone to buy something different and ended up with some extra stuff in your cart just because it's there, boom, scan, I got it.
DoorDash, Uber Eats.
Everything is designed to make somebody else money and to make you spend that money. And usually that's not going to be what's best for the consumer. So I asked, what do you do? And to be honest, it's not everyone has the luxury of living on a farm, maybe working out every single day, growing all their own food, having actual free range chickens and butchering their own stuff. We can't really do that in today's society. So what do you do instead of getting overwhelmed by this? You do the best you can, and under the appropriate guidance, you kind of find what the first best way to start is. What is the number one? I mean, I'm certified through Precision Nutrition, and they refer to it as the lowest hanging fruit. That is the next best thing that if you start on this, it's probably the easiest next step for you. It won't yield the most dramatic results right away, but it is the easiest next best step for you. You kind of have to figure out with either by yourself, with your coach, what that lowest hanging fruit is. And then they also define I don't like that they call it this. They call it the big kahuna. But
You don't like that?
we could come up with a better name for it. But that's the most important thing, that it's probably the hardest thing for you to address right away. But if and when you can finally address that, that's going to yield the most dramatic change. And where you kind of progress to usually falls somewhere in between there. And then eventually you take that biggest step. But that's with all this misinformation and all these systems that are kind of designed to make it more difficult for you. Try to outline those two areas, make that cluttered noise a little bit more simple, and then just take that next step forward.
What was your first meal that you cooked? You learned how to cook. That was like oh, this is
Baby food.
that was like macro friendly. You know what I mean?
Oh, macro friendly. I was gonna say Kraft mac and
Or
cheese.
even just like you're like
Chicken,
oh,
rice,
chicken, rice, broccoli, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tilapia.
Dude, the first
salmon.
time I made chicken, I was very eager that I had meal prepped for 2 or 3 days. I got to school. I was in high school still. I take a bite out of my chicken and it's pink. It's so pink.
I did too, and I finished it.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be like, I really believed that it was supposed to be slightly undercooked, like the way you cook steak. I was like 13 at the time.
Yeah, it's
Nobody
pink
told
center.
me.
It's medium rare.
I'm still alive, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a little bit of undoing. I think a lot of bit of undoing. A lot of it is undoing because you're either carrying over the habits that have been bestowed onto you by your parents, or you bought into a system because this is just the environment you grew up in. So you have to be firstly conscious that some of these things aren't entirely your fault. Secondly, you have to make the decision to want to change that. And then thirdly, you have to start with those low-hanging fruits. They're not going to be, you can't go for the big kahuna right away. You have to go with those small wins, those small victories, such as no more visits to the vending machine, or I'm going to cook one meal this week. And that might be victorious enough. And then you crank that up to one meal a day, whatever it may be. But, it really starts with just being conscious that you have a challenge or a problem first.
And I call that outthinking your hungry self, because you can be in the gym with your coach, with a trainer, or just working out on your own. And it's pretty easy right in that moment to say, yeah, I'm going to eat healthy for the rest of my life. I'm just going to meal prep. And you know what? I'm going to say no to all that. But when you finish that workout and you're on your way home and it's late, and then all of a sudden you realize you have no meal prep and you don't feel like cooking, it's a lot more difficult. You're in a completely different mental state to make that decision. I'd actually love to see what the brain looks like if we analyze that in those two different environments, because you are literally a completely different person. And that's where a lot of people who are also doing these more restrictive calorie diets or cutting out certain parts of their nutrition, they're the ones who are going to feel that a little bit more extreme and want to make more dramatic like binges and go after the other food. So I almost try to work with my clients to anticipate those times. Think about through your day, when do you most likely fall off track? When do you most likely binge, or when do you go for something else? And almost come up with a system in place to address that before it even happens. Like the clients that are traveling all the time, if they know that they're going to end up ordering out for lunch and getting Chick-fil-A or something, come up with something ahead of time, have that lunch prepped, or have something that when they get there, sometimes I'll even have my clients, I have this one client who used to do that all the time. He would order something crappy for lunch. I made him pre-order his lunch while he was in the gym with me so that he was making that decision when his mind was not in that hungry, crazy state. And you know what? When you finish that meal and you're satisfied, you're pretty much equally satisfied after having both meals. And if you can kind of think from that perspective and make that decision ahead of time, you're going to be much better off.
I was thinking to myself, man, I'd be so pissed off if I'm eating chicken and broccoli and rice instead of that delicious 4 for 4 from Wendy's because past me made a decision to eat healthy. I'd be so pissed off in that moment. But
I remember driving to the Arnold or driving to Ohio, and it was like an 8-hour drive, and Jorge and I, she flew, yeah. But Jorge and I, after each rest stop, we would always get like Fairlife protein milk. You know what I mean? So that was like 30 to 40 grams of, you know what I mean, protein. And we were like, yeah, we gotta get this protein in during our drive, or just get like beef jerky. So just like, which is low in fat, high in protein. But we always made like a conscious decision to really get our protein intake in, just to make sure that we're hitting our calories or our macros. So if you were to end off with anything, guys, what would it be for trying to hit? I guess for someone who's like getting into nutrition, what would you have them start off with first?
Eat with intention.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's kind of encompasses what Scott is talking about. It's not just eating to eat. not just eating to satisfy a carnal desire. It is eating with intention to whether you want to maintain weight, whether you want a better cognitive health, whether you want to gain weight, lose weight, whatever it may be, eat with that intention.
I actually saw a study where there were two different groups. One group was just eating their meals normally, essentially the control group doing what they did naturally. The other group was not eating anything truly different or was not served anything different. All they were taught to do or told to do was think about their food, think about the flavors that they tasted, think about each part of the tongue, like take those bites with intention and really just pay attention to the food. And that group actually lost weight simply because they were taking a little bit more time eating, enjoying the food maybe a little bit more, and effectively taking in a little bit less calories. So I kind of do agree with Jorge there. I immediately, when Niel said that question, I was going to say, well, it's different for everybody. Find out what that person's most effective factor is, what their greatest limiting factor is. But that's a really good place to start for most people, because most of us are not eating with intention. We're eating on the go. We're eating at the steering wheel, which is not advised. We are eating out of Tupperware in the middle of meetings, like putting our meeting on mute while we scarf something down and praying that they don't call on us to say something, and then like choking as we unmute it. And that's not eating with intention. That's getting in as many calories as possible and not really enjoying food. Now that's probably good for somebody who wants to lose weight. If you're somebody who wants to gain weight and put a little bit on, you could still eat with intention, but that intention could be get some more calories in and do it a little bit quicker.
No, I guess definitely on that and eating with intention. To kind of piggyback off that, usually what I start people on, whether it's lose weight, gain weight, I always like them to just track everything, create a food log, whether it be utilizing like an app like MyFitnessPal or even just like simply writing it down. I feel like one of the biggest things somebody can do is just becoming aware of like what they're eating, how much they're eating, and then realizing, all right, maybe this isn't exactly working for me. Maybe I can make changes here and there. But I feel like the best step to start is just figuring out what you're actually doing so that from there you can adjust.
Yeah, and definitely the whole like hit on the head, like with eating with intention, and then also just making sure that you have an eating schedule. You know what I mean? For someone who's busy, just kind of lay out a plan, be like, all right, well, I have meetings from this time to this time, or I'm working from this time to this time. I definitely know I can at least hit 3 meals in a day, and I'm going to hit these meals at this time. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as I'm eating consistently and regularly, that'll form a habit in itself. And then from there, that's when you start to go for the big kahuna, right? You get to get healthier meals, maybe more protein in there, and then just, try to go into more detail with that.
So it's always easier to change and manipulate a current habit than to create a new one. So I love that, creating a system and habit behind actually having the meals and then mold that as you go. There was this one story that I heard about this football team strength coach who they wanted their football players to gain weight coming in, and they were noticing none of them were eating breakfast. So instead of going to the nutritionist and coming out with this plan and saying, okay, you guys are going to have egg whites, spinach, you're going to have this oatmeal, muesli, like all this crazy stuff and do that and stick with it, he gave them Pop-Tarts. And every single one of them ate breakfast after that. From there, they created the habit, and then they changed and molded that into something healthier. But initially, he was looked at like he was crazy, but that team gained the weight. They were healthy, hit all their markers, but they did so by creating the habit first. Not saying everyone should start with Pop-Tarts for breakfast. Small disclaimer, but
silly idea.
Yeah.
It's like when I was a teen, I came across this YouTube video of how to gain weight. And the one thing he said on the YouTube video, I forget who it was eat every 2 hours. I was about 120, 30 pounds, couldn't gain weight. But I think that had largely to do with my eating habits. So that's what he emphasizes. Put an alarm every 2 hours. Doesn't matter if it's a cupcake. Doesn't matter if it's almond nuts. Doesn't matter if it's a whole meal. But every 2 hours, eat something. And then little by little, you'll get used to eating every 2 hours, that you'll be able to crank it up a notch, make it whole meals, make it a protein shake, make it whatever.
Yeah. I definitely, I like what we all had to say about that. So if anyone is looking to lose weight, make sure you guys first start off with the intention, the goal, What else, guys? Attention, goal, and what? I don't know how to brain fart.
Intention, goal. And that's great.
And-
That's
and
great.
track.
That's great.
Huh?
That's great.
Tracking for your first.
Yeah, and there
That
you
was
go.
great.
Intention,
Yes.
goal, and
I can already see that
was
being
like-
a sign off. And thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in on our latest podcast.
First podcast.
Our first podcast. I am Jorge Diaz. This is
Scott.
and
Dan.
with
Niel.
and we are the
Mental rep.
District.
District.